Good morning. Happy Friday. I'm so glad to see everyone this morning. My name is Phyllis Newbill. I'm the Associate Director of Educational Networks and Impacts, just Educational Networks, at the Center for Educational Networks and Impacts, which is one of several centers within ICAT. I'm so glad to see you all this morning, and hear you for that matter. A couple of notes before we get going. We are filming in 360 this morning. That's what the camera in the middle of the room is. So your image is currently being streamed to the worldwide interwebs and will exist on the interweb afterwards, so behave accordingly. Please do sign in. I have a sign-in clipboard somewhere in this room that I will start. It's back there, good. And that should go around. That's how we justify donuts, so be sure to sign in. If you have questions, wait till I get to you with the mic if you're in the room. And if you're online, if you'd like to submit a question, just use that questions link, and Ashley will help us get those asked as quick as we can. If PDN credit is helpful to you, make sure you register using the link on the QR code on the bottom of the sign-in sheet, and make sure you make eye contact with me so that I give you your A+ 100% first thing on Friday morning. One announcement this morning, we have ICAT t-shirts. So everybody in the room and those of you who are online, stop by our offices in the Moss Art Center and pick yourself up a t-shirt. You know you want one. They're free. Free. Load the trunk. All right. This morning we are so lucky to have Will Mikowski with us, talking about commercialization of research. So without any further ado, I will turn it over to him. Good morning, Will.
Good morning. Thank you so much. As Phyllis said, my name is Will Mikowski. I am a interdisciplinary PhD student here at Virginia Tech. Here today, I am primarily going to talk about the NSF I-Corps program, as well as proof of concept funding. Before we begin, I just want to give a shout out to ICAT, kind of the thing that was the catalyst for moving both to the NSF I-Corps program as well as proof of concept funding was an ICAT student seed grant that we got. We had an interdisciplinary team, and we were able to do some initial product development and some initial commercialization with that. Once we kind of had an idea that we could actually make, so what I'm working on is custom fit 3D printed bicycle helmets. And once we kind of had an idea that we could actually make it through some component testing, we participated in the NSF I-Corps program to kind of build a business case around it. So at the macro level, with the NSF I-Corps program, these numbers are not exact, but every year, hundreds of millions of dollars are spent on research. However, a very small percentage of that research is ever commercialized. So a very small percent, I believe it's between like 5 to 3%, only makes it to market to products that people actually end up using. But the point is, the NSF I-Corps program's focus is how do we take graduate students, postdocs, researchers that are on the cutting edge of technology, and how do we get those technologies out into the market? At more of the micro level, you have a grad student or a postdoc or a researcher, and they believe their research has some sort of commercial potential. So the most rudimentary form of that is, I want to sell things to people. So for me, the rudimentary form of that was, I want to sell bike helmets to riders. Well, what kind of riders? Are they master's riders? Are they pro riders? Are they parents of kids? And so really the NSF I-Corps program, what that works on is going from this rudimentary form of, I want to sell things to people from my research to, on our right here, we have the business model canvas. And so basically it's a form of all the components that are necessary of going into a business. So who are your customer segments? What is the value proposition? So for a bicycle helmet, is it so parents can feel safe? Is it to prevent and mitigate injury? There are many, there's many values that are being exchanged from the person who's purchasing it to the company that is selling the product. And again, with this initial kind of sell things to people, there are a lot of assumptions based around that. So even bicycle helmets, of selling a helmet to riders, there are a lot of assumptions. And so through the business model canvas, through the NSF I-Corps program, it's focused on what's called evidence-based learning, which I'll talk a little bit more in a second. The I-Corps program, it supports teams of scientists, engineers, to explore the commercial potential of technologies developed in university laboratories through a standardized entrepreneurial training program. So you have teams of 3 people often. It's your entrepreneurial lead. The entrepreneurial lead is often the postdoc or the graduate student. And in my case, I was the entrepreneurial lead. You have the technical lead. In my case, those were my co-chairs. And so that can be whoever the graduate student or postdoc is working under. And then you have the industry mentor. And so the industry mentor is someone who's actually not necessarily affiliated with the university. And that was the biggest struggle of getting someone on our team. Because oftentimes you don't have a previous relationship with this person, and they're taking 7 weeks out of their life to help you understand the business infrastructure around this product or service that you're trying to create. The program is 7 weeks. In that 7 weeks, you must complete 100 interviews. And then you're given $50,000 for customer discovery. So those interviews of talking to relevant stakeholders about the business that you're trying to create, that's what customer discovery is. And so a lot of that money is for travel, meaning you're flying to various expos, conferences, to find a mass of people that you can interview over a short period of time. And then I have a video for you. So this was the final video that we presented after our I-Corps training, and all the teams had to present some type of video.
Hi, my name is Will Mikowski, and I'm the entrepreneurial lead for Team 2702, the custom fit helmet team. Our team includes Bob Chalfant as our industry mentor, with Tom Martin and Andy Shout as co-technical leads. I'm currently working towards an interdisciplinary PhD studying product development for bicycle helmets, with some initial product development started and some occasional impact testing. Although our initial business model canvas had a wide range of potential customer segments, our focus was parents who can't find a proper fitting helmet for their child.
Oh, you know what? Maybe Danny should do it. We're gonna put it back on.
No, we need one more.
It was time to get out of the building, engage with real users, and challenge and support our hypotheses. And off we were. The most interesting interview we had during our I-Corps experience was with Philip, the buyer for Elevation Cycles. With no appointment or previous relationship, we walked into the bike shop, explained the program, and asked about bike helmets. Philip described the prototypical Elevation Cycle rider, how they navigate what helmets they sell, as well as described his own challenges of finding a proper fitting helmet for his child. Philip also participated in a demo interview where we described the product and had a collaborative discussion about the advantages and disadvantages of our solution in relation to different customer segments. An important lesson I learned is that the product is the business model canvas, not simply a customer segment that has identified a problem. as well as the importance of channels for connecting value propositions with customer segments.
Okay, so now I've talked about the NSF I-Core program a little bit, and so now at this point we kind of have a business case for the product that we're trying to develop. We've identified a group of potential early adopters. We've identified a value proposition, all of which has been challenged and supported by interviews with actual people. And so at this point, the proof of concept funding was a great next step for us. And so just generally speaking, proof of concept funding combines early stage commercialization grants and complementary resources to assist Virginia Tech researchers who want to increase the impact of their research and actively pursue the potential commercialization of technologies emerging from their labs. So the primary benefit of the proof of concept funding was it provided money for us to pursue additional product development. And so specific to bicycle helmets, there is a CPSC regulatory body, Consumer Product Safety, and every bicycle helmet has to pass this regulatory body. And so specifically, there's an impact attenuation test. And what we've been doing is designing and printing components of the helmet, impact testing them, and that's what we've been using our proof of concept funding for. But so for proof of concept funding, whether you apply or not, I would recommend that everyone submit an invention disclosure as a first step. Then as you're applying, if you've already participated in the I-Core program, you should have a great business case for why your product or service should qualify for proof of concept funding. And then also developing a product development roadmap with milestones. So how are you actually going to take it from what you're working on in the lab to a product or service that is working in the real world? If you are selected for proof of concept funding, components of it are you'll submit a provisional patent application, which we've already done, and then you work on a utility patent. For proof of concept funding, grants are provided up to $50,000. The expectation is that the funds are used for commercialization efforts and not just more research. So if you're looking at it as a pathway for funding for research, proof of concept funding is probably not the best source of funding. And then finally, there's a lot of support in both access to other resources. So one-on-one support from launch. One that we have not been able to take advantage of, but is a great opportunity, is matching funds from VIPSI. So if you get $50,000 from proof of concept funding, the Virginia Tech Innovation Partnership Council, I believe that's what VIPSI stands for, can match that $50,000, which is awesome. And then there's a lot of additional programming such as Startup Labs, which is a course Mark Mondry, who's here with us today, taught last summer, and it's just kind of bringing grad students in to learn more about the commercialization process. So from that, I've talked about starting with a product idea from your research, participating in the NSF I-Core program to identify a business case, and then proof of concept funding to focus on commercialization. And then there's additional steps where you can, if you're looking at continuing product development and commercialization, there's the NSF PFI grants and then NSF SBIR grants as well. And that's my presentation. And now it's open for questions.
Thanks, Will. Love all this work that's happening. You've got a question already, Sean. Coming to you.
A really short question. Is there it looked like there might be a donut hole there in the patent application, because that's not necessarily cheap. It looked like the second set of 50,000 was after you had applied for the patent? Is there funding in that process for the patent, for developing the patent application itself?
The funding, so those are two separate, so the funding for so what you're gonna do for commercialization in terms of product development is totally separate from the funding that goes towards the patent. So it's not like you get this $50,000 and then $30,000 has to go towards a utility patent. Mark, if I mess anything up, please feel free to interject, but that's my understanding of it. Question?
No, it was more that it looked like there might be a donut hole where there wasn't, I didn't see where the funding for that patent application was, because I saw the two sets of funding, but the first one seemed to be for the research of developing the idea. Did that include, the patent falls under that? Because you know, I haven't done patents myself, but I've had several friends who have, so I've got a little bit of familiarity, and it's a pretty involved and can be an expensive process, and it looks like you need to be on your way for that to apply for the commercialization. I'm just wondering where that would fit. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll defer to Mark.
The answer is right here.
I love the term donut hole. There's lots of donut holes in the process, but because Will's technology emerged from his research, when he files an invention disclosure, if there's an opportunity to patent some of that, that cost is borne by the university. And then those patents, if they do mature in the process, those become licensed to his startup if he develops a startup. So that's how it kind of helps get to market. So the researchers don't bear the burden of that cost, because it can, as you mentioned, can get quite costly. I do have a question for you, Will. Excellent presentation about how all of these things come together to better understand the market. Do you think this experience will enhance your research in the future and the research of the people that you've worked with in any way?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that we were talking about earlier was just the interdisciplinary aspect of it. And so I have a lot of touch points throughout the university. And then a person that I've worked with in the past over at the Dreams Lab is here today, Jack. So it is one of those, so one of being able to communicate this experience to the different departments, and then also looking at it through a commercialization lens, as opposed to specifically a research lens, where a research lens could be, okay, I just genuinely want to learn about whatever it is, X, Y, or Z. But through a commercialization lens, it's, okay, I still want to learn about X, Y, or Z, but how do we start building an ecosystem around that where we can create some type of product that can then go out into the world? So yeah, I would say absolutely, because I'm already thinking about what are the next, 3 or 4 iterations of it. And you're already thinking about, like, okay, how do I go through customer discovery? How do I create hypotheses about who my customer segments are? What are the value propositions of this? So yeah, I'd say absolutely. It's like research is one lens to learn about the world, and then commercialization is another lens to learn about the world.
Coming.
So you briefly, well, first of all, I know you will, in your interest in design as well as in the engineering aspects of things, and you briefly mentioned the interdisciplinarity aspect of this, and you also showed in your diagram industrial design as part of that. And a lot of the audience here is in design and the arts, so I was curious how that got incorporated into some of your process for innovation.
So if I can just say the question back to you is how has design been incorporated into the process of innovation? I I don't know if I have a good answer for that off the top of my head. I think that regardless of which bucket I'm in, there are design challenges. And so whether it's industrial design, whether it's mechanical engineering, or whether it's injury biomechanics, there's a problem that needs to be solved. And it's just, I think that for each of those, it's working with people and trying to creatively problem solve. And so I think that there's kind of just a fundamental layer of working with people and trying to creatively problem solve that applies to each of those, whether it is industrial design or mechanical engineering or impact biomechanics.
Can you go back to that slide that had that, all of the disciplines? I have a question there, actually. It just made me happy, actually, because there were so many disciplines represented, and there was that.
I don't know.
That's it. So close. One before? Two before?
I'm not sure.
What I'm interested in is how you've integrated all those disciplines. That was pretty much the whole university covered in one diagram. So can you talk about the iPhD program and what that is?
Yeah, so the iPhD program is an interdisciplinary PhD program where if what you are trying to study does not cleanly fit into one college or even department. For me, coming to Virginia Tech, even before Virginia Tech, grad school wasn't ever really something that was on my radar map. It was, I'd say, kind of something that happened naturally and organically. So even before knowing about the PhD program, I was on a trip to the East Coast, and just because of curiosity, I knew what Virginia Tech was doing at VTTI with motorcycle accident research, so I reached out to Andy Shout. I knew what Virginia Tech was doing with 3D printing or additive manufacturing, so I reached out to Chris Williams over at the Dreams Lab. I knew what they were doing with helmet testing, so I reached out to Stefan Duma. And so just because of curiosity and knowing about the resources at Tech, I basically flew out here, set up meetings with people, and then from that, they were like, hey, by the way, we have a grad program. We think you should apply to it. So it was really more about curiosity and continually building relationships. And then the interdisciplinary PhD program, I would say, grew out of that, more so than actively seeking out, knowing I want to do grad school and I want to seek out a PhD program.
Nice. I think that your story is actually the problem-driven PhD is what the iPhD program is set up to do. So it's a great example. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ashley. Hi, friends online.
This question comes from online. Since the university bears the cost of the patent, does the university also profit from selling the product?
Yeah. So the university will own the patent, and then the plan is I will launch a new venture, and then I will license the patent from the university. So there will be licensing fees associated with that. The way I kind of look at that is that if you look at the world and you try to own everything and you try to hold it very tightly, you then limit yourself to so many other opportunities. So the way that I see it is this is the first one, right? I've got plenty of other ideas, and as I was talking to Mark earlier, there are lenses of both research and commercialization, and so I anticipate that there will probably be future patents down the road. And how we go about doing those, do we do it through the university? Do I do it through the new venture? Who knows? But this is really just iteration one, and if you think of the university owning it and you licensing it from the university as a stumbling block, I would just ignore that and say this is iteration one, and you're going to make 100 other things that are even cooler than this first iteration.
Tell me about the hardest thing about the I-Corps program.
I think finding an industry mentor was very challenging for me. So in the I-Corps program, there are teams of 3, the technical lead, the entrepreneurial lead, and the industry mentor. And so the entrepreneurial lead was me, that's easy. Technical lead, those were my co-chairs, that was also easy. And then finding an industry mentor was very challenging because this person is working for free. It takes up 7 weeks of their life. And so literally reaching out to people in Virginia Tech, Lisa Garcia over at Ramp, going through LinkedIn. I mean, you're just reaching out to person after person. And so I often think about, like, what does it mean to think creatively in business or entrepreneurship? And I was having a discussion with Lisa Garcia where I was telling her about this roadblock of finding an industry mentor. And we'd kind of come up with this plan of, okay, if we can't find the right singular person, what if we can, because there are many people who said, oh, I can't commit for the whole 7 weeks, but maybe I can definitely participate in an interview, or I can participate in this other segment to help you out. And so we were like, okay, well, what if we recreate one person out of many people? So you have one person who's an expert in maybe head injury, one person who's an expert in business, one person who's an expert specifically in the bicycle industry. We ended up not going that route. At the end of the day, I was able to find someone who I knew from 10 years ago, and they were willing to be a part of it, and that was great, and that was the right decision. But especially with commercialization, launching a new venture, product development, there are continually hurdles, and your job is to creatively brainstorm to figure out how to get past those hurdles.
Excellent. Well, we are pretty much at time, so I want to thank you, Will, for being here this morning, and thank all of you for coming out on a rainy morning. I hope you all have a great spring break. So we will not be here this time and place next week, but we'll be back again the week after that as soon as classes are back in session, back here on that Friday. Again, 8:30, more donuts, more coffee. Also, ICAT Day, there is a flyer around for ICAT Day. If you have got a great project, bring it. We like to see it, and there's a QR code for that. Thank you all. Have a great spring break. We'll see you again soon.